Okay, so we're continuing with the discussion on the second part 2 of chapter 3. Before that, we'll quickly revise what we did last time. Last time we talked at length about three modes of nature. First one being the mode of goodness, also known as sattva guna. Second being the mode of passion, known as rajaguna. And then we have the mode of ignorance, which is tamoguna. And we went over the definitions of these three modes of nature. Anyone can help me quickly revise what are the three modes of nature? There's one more part. Yeah, it's the last topic we discussed. So the definition is not listed over here. Maybe it's in the notes, but we walked over the definition last time. You're making active notes. Um, who recalls what is mode of goodness? It's basically the outlook of an individual, right? These are people who are in a certain kind of situation, and how do they feel? What, like, maybe are they happy? Are they not happy? I'm giving you hints over here. There was a kind of theme we discussed. Basically, whether you are comfortable with the situation and what you want to do about it, right? So those are the two aspects based on which we defined the three modes of nature. Can you open your notes from last time if you don't recall? I think we spent like 30 minutes going over this. I'm hoping somebody can at least make an attempt to explain what the three modes of nature are. Don't worry if you don't get it right. Did anyone make notes? Ria.
Prabhuji, the three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Yes. Yeah, can you help explain what are those? What is mode of goodness? We talked in deep length about what each mode means. What is mode of goodness? What is mode of passion? What is mode of ignorance?
So, mode of goodness is wanting to help others and basically doing um, many pious activities, but not really devotional activities. It just like you get a bunch of good karma, so then you can go to heaven by being in the mode of goodness. And then
So
there's
this
the
is all.
mode.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you finish. Yeah.
Yeah, no, wait, what were you saying, Prabhuji?
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Go finish it.
And then the mode of passion is where people they're in the mode to like work,
Okay.
um and then in ignorance people are just very lazy, and sleeping is considered to be in the mode of ignorance.
Yeah, this is all correct answers. Good. Um, but I'm also looking for the specific definitions that we provided. So this answer is correct. There's nothing wrong in it. But we talked about a particular definition. So I see Tulsi Priya's hand raised, and somebody is also typing in chat. So I'll let Tulsi Priya speak first.
I also remember we briefly talked about like how like sattva goodness is like more in the morning time. Passion is like in the afternoon, and like tamas sleeping is in the evening. And also uh like so like goodness like sattva guna so like they are satisfied with wherever they are, and so they
Right,
don't, and then they don't try to change whatever they're doing, like the situation, I
right,
think.
right.
um like, and then passion rajaguna, it's when somebody's like not satisfied if of where they are in right now, and then so they try to change wherever they are.
Yes.
And mode of ignorance tamaguna is where somebody is not completely not satisfied of where they're in right now, and so and but then they don't try to change what they do.
That's correct. Excellent. Yeah, that's the other answers were also right, but this is the exact definition that I was looking for. So I don't know if you recall, but we discussed this last time. I have it in the notes, and I'm hoping some of you made notes also. I hope all of you make notes because You won't find this definition.
I have a question.
If you're not making notes, then
Hello, Prabhu.
you're losing out. Yes, Rishikesh, go ahead.
Is more of goodness the opposite of more of ignorance?
Yeah, in a way you can say that. I mean, they're extremes, right? In the sense the goodness is on the one end of the spectrum and ignorance is on the opposite end of the spectrum. But this definition which Tulsi Priya summarized, these are the precise definitions. Of course, this is not the only way to look at it. And so the answer that Ria gave is also correct. But I just wanted to make sure that all of you understood this because we went over this at length. Okay. And I see Sahana also answered the same. So thank you, Sahana. Okay. Anyone else wants to add anything to this or have any other questions before we move on? Okay. So let's move on to part 2. So part 2, in the first part, Krishna explains two particular paths, right? Path of engagement and path of renunciation. And then he says, well, path of engagement is superior than path of renunciation, where one in path of renunciation one completely gives up even performing their prescribed duties. In path of renunciation, one is performing the activities, but then the results they are offering it, in sacrifice. They might be doing it out of habit or practice because that's what the scriptures say, but their focus is not so much necessarily in the mood of devotion, right? So one does those activities mostly without attachment as a sense of duty. uh, we discuss the science of sacrifice, but in the part 2, that idea is further refined by Krishna. So he's elaborating on the act of devotion, right? So not sacrifice with the motive that I will get something in return, right? Because that is karma kanda. So there is a section of Vedas in which says that if you do certain kind of sacrifices, you get something in return, right? So now we are, going to the next level where Krishna is saying, okay, yeah, you get something in return, but real sacrifice means you do it as a matter of devotion, not as a business dealing. Just like you go to your friend, how do you deal with your friend? Like if you really love your friend, then you want to help them and you want to serve your friend without any expectation for anything in return, right? As opposed to maybe if somebody does a work, right, then it's your employer employee relationship is more like a business dealing. Well, I give you something and I expect something in return, right? So that is one level of dealing, but higher than that is the idea of not expecting anything in return. So that is the act of devotion. That's what we're going to talk about. So what is devotion, right? So now the same work Krishna says to Arjuna that you should do it without any desire for profit, without any claims to proprietorship. Because Arjuna was thinking, well, I am after winning the war, I won't be able to enjoy because he thought that, well, I am the proprietor of the kingdom. Once I win, you'll rule over it. But I won't be able to enjoy. Then what's the benefit, right? So Krishna is saying you give up the idea of profit or loss, but you do your prescribed duties as an act of devotion, uh, as an act of devotion, as sacrifice for Vishnu, but not sacrifice with the intent of getting something in return. Because earlier Krishna was also talked about, hey, those warriors who get a chance to fight in a war are very fortunate because if they die, they go to heavenly planets. If they win, they can rule the kingdom, right? So now that was an argument not at the highest level of devotion, but it was more on level of um, like fruitive mentality. Fruitive mentality means, well, I want something in return. So now Krishna is presenting a higher concept. So those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions, that's what Krishna is saying. Those who follow my teachings faithfully without any envy towards anyone, they are not bound by any fruitive actions, right? So we gave the example of just like when we earn some income, like all your parents, they're working, right? So when they earn some income, some salary, money, we have to pay taxes to the government, right? It's not exactly one-to-one kind of comparison, but it's at some level you can understand this analogy. And as long as we have, we pay our taxes, whatever income that we earned, right? It is considered valid or legal, right? One can earn millions of dollars or billions of dollars, but as long as one pays taxes, it is all one can keep their wealth and enjoy it or do whatever with it, right? But if one does not pay the taxes, right, then that person is considered as a financial crime, right, where one is not paying their dues. Because all the citizens of the country, they are getting some benefit from the government. They are using public facilities, right? Whether you talk about roads or infrastructure, bridges, electricity, parks, public schools, right? All that takes investment. And how does the government generate money? Well, the government has to tax. So if somebody is using those services, then no one can say I'm not using the services, right? Because these are all common services. Otherwise, we cannot live in this society. We are using those services, but if you're not paying our dues for it, then it's kind of someone who is ungrateful, or it's tantamount to thievery, like a thief, right, who takes things illegally. So Krishna has provided through the agency of the demigods so many facilities, right? The air that we breathe, the water that we use, right? The grains on which we subsist, uh, all the technological advancements, they are made based on exploiting the natural resources, right? Whether it is forests or timber, or the mining for minerals which go into different kind of electronics and things like that. It's all, the man did not create it, right? So it's all provided by higher arrangements. So only those who are ungrateful consider that they are the proprietors of everything, right? So that's the attitude that one has to give up. So when one understands, well, we are not the proprietor, then who is the proprietor? And when one understands, okay, ultimately everything comes from Krishna. And who is Krishna? What is it? What is so special about him? And there's so many pastimes of Krishna, descriptions of Krishna, based on which one can develop attachment towards Krishna. Can anyone would like to share, like, what is it so pleasing about Krishna? Is Krishna a kind of person that everyone would be attracted to, or are there any things about Krishna that are not so pleasing, you won't like? Is something unique about Krishna that no one has? Okay, Parth.
Um, he's like he came down to earth to ensure that there were good people on earth, and he taught a lot of lessons to people and saved his devotees.
Yeah, that's a good one. Anything else anyone wants to share? Yeah, Krishna came down there. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? Whenever there is a decline in religion, increase in irreligiosity, I come down to annihilate those who are impious and then deliver those who are pious. Okay, Ujjwal.
He helped the Pandavas in the when he gave he advised to Arjuna in the beginning of the war.
I can very lightly hear you say that he advised Arjuna in the beginning of the war.
Yeah, and he helped the Pandavas.
Right. So yeah, he helped the Pandavas. That's right. But Krishna is, all those answers are correct. What's unique about Krishna is a kind of a person that everyone can relate to. And of course, he has many other forms like Vishnu and Rama, which are in one sense not different from him. But Krishna is a kind of person in his original form with whom one can have relationship in any mood. for instance, Lord Rama, he appeared as a son of a king, right? A prince. So how can, most people will relate to a king in awe and reverence, in a reverential mood, with respect, right? But it's not easy to be a friend of a king, right? Friendship can only be with equals or with those who are at a relatively low, mostly equals, right? Um, but if it's a king, everyone else, will feel like, oh, this king is superior, right? So you cannot, it's not easy to be friend with Lord Rama. If you see Ramayan, how many, can you think of anyone who was friend with Lord Rama, right? And can you name friends that Lord Rama? Who?
Could it be Lakshman?
Yeah, I mean, you can say Lakshman again was junior to Rama, right? So he was serving his brother, uh, in a mood of service, right? Servant, right? He would not take service from Rama, right?
Wasn't
So
he like good friends with like Hanuman?
Hanuman was also a servant of Lord Rama, right? So you would execute any orders. But when you say friendship, means I can joke with that person,
Yeah,
right?
not
Without,
yes.
right? So the mood of friendship is not fully manifested in the form of Lord Rama. Also, Lord Rama, he is the son of a king. So how many people were parents to Lord Rama, right? Dasrath and his queens, right? But if I cannot, the residents of Ayodhya, they cannot go and, approach Lord Rama as if in a very,
Prabhuji, one
yes,
friend of Krishna is Sudama, the Brahmana. He's like his
yes,
friend from the school.
right. So with Krishna, it is different because Krishna, he appeared as a village boy. And in village, everyone is a friend. So he's not son of a big king or anything. So his friends had so many friends, they used to joke with Krishna. And they would, sometimes scold him, chastise him, steal his lunchbox, right? They would ride on each other backs. You cannot do that with Lord Rama, right? So with Krishna, the relationship is more intimate. So Krishna means all attractive. Similarly, parents, right? Lord Rama, Dashrath was his father, and then he had many queens, and they would look upon Rama as their son. But the residents of Ayodhya cannot have that direct relationship of that parental affection towards Lord Rama. They cannot exhibit it because he's the son of the prince. But in Vrindavan, all the elderly residents of Vrindavan, they looked upon baby Krishna as their son, right? The elderly gopis would come and nurse the baby, right? They would scold him, chastise him. So he's the son of everyone in the village. It's a village environment. And so that is because there are all these relationships are also there in the spiritual world: friendship, parental affection. But so Krishna, everyone can be a parent. Those whoever has the mood of serving Krishna as their son, they can exhibit their relationship in parental affection, like Yashodananda Maharaj or Vasudev Devaki. That's not possible with other forms of Lord like Vishnu or Rama. Then conjugal affection. That means relationship between husband and a wife. So those devotees who look upon the Lord as their husband, right? So Lord Rama is Ek Patni Vrata. Only Sita can exhibit the mood of conjugal affection towards Lord Rama, no one else. The sages of Dandaka forest, when they saw Lord Rama, they said, we wish we would, we would like to assume a feminine form and accept you as our husband. And Lord Rama said, well, that's not possible because I have taken a vow to accept only one wife. Because Lord Rama appeared to set an ideal example that how an ideal person should live. An ideal person, and so for that reason, he only accepted one wife. So if anyone follows what exactly Lord Rama did, then there is no fault. For Krishna, he appeared for a different reason. He appeared in his original form, where he wants to accept love and devotion in whatever mood his devotees have. The devotees who have friendship, affection in mood of friendship, they can only approach Krishna. It is not possible to approach Lord Rama. And similarly, parental affection you can fully manifest and exhibit towards Lord Krishna. And similarly, Krishna accepted 16,108 wives because these princesses were captured by, what's his name? Was it Bhaumasura? That he, when he saved them.
It was something like in Diwali, like called
Yes.
Narkasura, like Narka
Yes.
Chaturthi or something.
That's right.
You remember that because for Diwali we talked about it in Hindi class.
That's true. So when the princesses were delivered, he says, no one will accept us as their spouse, no one will marry us, basically. That's what they said. So Krishna said, don't worry, I'll marry you. So he married all of them. And he expanded himself into 16,000 forms to be with each of his wife. And then we have the gopis, right, of Vrindavan, who accept, though they were not married to Krishna, they were pure in their love and devotion. And Krishna accepted their devotion in their mood. So Krishna is all attractive, right? So the worship of Krishna is that in love and devotion, is not because that he is God, right? Because as soon as you say I want to worship Krishna as a friend, then the residents of Vrindavan, they don't even realize, they don't even know that Krishna is God. That's why they can exhibit friendship. Similarly, the residents of Vrindavan, when they look upon Krishna as their child, a helpless child, it needs to be taken care of, they are made to forget that he is God. That's when they can exhibit their love, right? And similarly, the gopis and the queens of Dwarka. So that is the ultimate level of devotion, where the mood is really love and devotion, not about official position, because God is an official title. Krishna doesn't care about being God, whether he's God or not. Just like you've given this example that like the president of the United States or any other country for that matter is a person, is a family member. His family members, they don't look upon him like Joe Biden. His family does not look upon him as the president. For them, he is, either like a husband, a grandfather, a father, right, or uncle. So each of their family members, they have a special relationship with him. They don't care whether he's the president or not. Similarly, God is an official title, and Krishna cares the least about it. What he cares about is love and devotion by his devotees, who are not so much concerned about his title. So that's the idea. So Krishna is asking Arjuna, you do your work as a act of devotion towards me, right? So that's one level higher than simply doing it as a mere sacrifice while expecting something in return. So Krishna says, well, this is the highest objective, right? But those who out of envy disregard my teachings and do not follow them, they are not situated in knowledge. And all their endeavors would be ruined. Why they will be ruined? Because if it's not performed with the idea of devotion, then it is performed with the idea of getting something in return, right? There's only two choices. Either one does it in the mood of devotion, or one does it with the mood of expecting something in return, right? And if we do it with the motive of expecting something in return, what happens, that the nature of this world is that everything is temporary in this world. So no matter how much success one achieves, suppose somebody becomes the richest person in the world, but he cannot remain rich forever. And then he cannot be like number one position all the time. I mean, it's just a matter of time. Somebody might be more richer than him or her. And the riches also don't last. There are losses that can happen, or somebody overspends it. And even if the wealth sustains, when the body dies, all the wealth is lost, right? And the next body one gets, one might not be rich anymore, because one might be rich because of accumulation of pious credits, and on top of that, they might have done some hard work. It's generally a combination of both past karma and one's present endeavor. But no one can have a continuous streak of success. A lot of our success is based on the kind of opportunities that we got, right? Maybe a good birth, good family, good education, good opportunities. And we might not have the similar kind of opportunities in our next life, right? So everything is temporary. So all endeavors are ruined, or that's what Krishna is saying. They're ruined in their endeavors for perfection because it's not possible to achieve any material perfection in this world. But the acts of devotion to Krishna never go in vain. Krishna is not an ungrateful person. He always, remembers the acts of devotion. So who can summarize what we discussed in this slide before we move on to the next slide? I just want to make sure we don't lose what was discussed.
What Krishna is looking.
Sorry?
What Krishna is looking for his
You want to go ahead and speak and you finish your thought, because I think I cannot hear the full sentence. Ujjwal, did you wanted to say something? I don't want to put you on spot or anything. Anyone else would like to summarize? Or Ujjwal, you can also if you want. Just in few sentences, what is the, can you repeat or summarize the crux of what?
I understood that Krishna, one thing is that's very special about him is that we all can relate to him, and like he doesn't really care if he's like God or not. Like all we need to do is treat him with love and devotion, and treat him like he's our friend or he's our father, son, whatever, and just keep on loving him. So that was basically what I thought was really important.
Good, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to add anything to that? Okay. So then Krishna in verses 33 to 35, he talks about engaging in, again, of course, the highest principle is devotion, but we cannot spontaneously develop devotion, right? We cannot artificially develop it. We have our own conditioning. What it means is that we, have our preferences, likes and dislikes. We are naturally inclined to do certain kind of work. We might have other desires. So a gradual process is recommended, which is, well, one should act in morality, one should do one's prescribed duties. And when you say prescribed duties, who is prescribing it? Just like you go to a doctor, right? Doctor diagnoses, well, you have this symptom, so maybe you have this particular illness, right? And what would the doctor do when he finds that, well, this is for this particular illness, you need certain kind of medicine. So doctor, what does he do? He prescribes a certain medicines. So prescription comes from the doctor. Similarly, here Krishna through the Vedas is prescribing what duties should different kind of people do. And this different kind of people is referring to people who have certain kind of inclination because they are born in a particular family, by their family tradition, the kind of environment they are brought in, they are naturally inclined to do what their parents, forefathers, uncles, aunts, they are doing. They're raised in their environment, and so one is developing a certain kind of proclivity or propensity based on their upbringing. So earlier we didn't have public schools, right? Generally everyone is trained in their family tradition, and so for each class of men there of each class of people, there are certain duties which are prescribed, and because they are brought into their environment from very young age, they are naturally inclined to do certain kind of activities according to their family tradition, even if they get success or even if they do not get success, right? It's not that I well, suppose I am a potter, then I'm not going to change my profession. I'm just naturally inclined to do pottery because that's what I've been trained, right? That's my inclination or propensity to do because that's what my training has been. And maybe if I get training for something else, then I might be able to do some other work much better than what I'm doing right now as a potter. But Krishna is saying here that it's better to do one's own duties, even if there are some faults in performance of the duty. For instance, any kind of duty anyone does, there are some faults, right? So brahmanas, they when they perform sacrifices, right? So when they offer different oblations in the fire sacrifices, many times different insects or other beings might be killed. Or Kshatriya, when one fights, definitely Kshatriya commits some violence, and Kshatriya is allowed to hunt so that they can sharpen their fighting skills. So there is animal slaughter that's sometime involved. Vaishyas, they are doing business minded people. Sometimes they have to lie, right? It's not a big lie, but some kind of like, hey, this is the best product that you can get it, right? Whatever that person is selling. Well, this is the best kind of cloth. If I'm a cloth merchant, I would always, in order to sell it, I might overemphasize or exaggerate more than what the truth is, just to sell my product, right? So in this way, any kind of activity that you do, there's some fault involved. So Krishna is saying that it's better to do the activities in which you are, in the family tradition in which you are brought up, right? Even if there are some faults, because all activities have some fault. Better to do that than to do somebody else's work perfectly. Right? I can execute somebody else's work. I mean, not, I might, it is not in my family tradition, somebody else's family tradition. Like Arjuna, he was trained as a Kshatriya, but he is saying, I want to become a sannyasi. Generally, sannyas is taken only by the Brahmanas. Kshatriyas, they don't take sannyas. Life of renunciation is only recommended for Brahmanas. It's not a duty of Kshatriyas. And Arjuna is confident that he can perfectly execute and live the life of a renunciate. So here Krishna is saying that, hey, Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya. And I see what you're saying. You're saying if I perform my prescribed duty as a Kshatriya, there is some fault. What is the fault that Arjuna is saying that he saw in performance of his prescribed duties? Can anyone say that? Well, those are the arguments Arjuna provided why he doesn't want to fight, because he saw some faults. If I'm to execute my duties, yeah, what are the faults?
He has to kill his family members.
Yeah, especially his guru and grandfather. So that is a fault, right? Who kills one's guru? Who kills one's grandfather? So that's the Arjuna's argument, right? So he's saying, well, there are faults in executing my prescribed duties. Krishna is saying, do your prescribed duties even if it is false. Then, and even if you're not able to win the war, suppose you are not, you don't fight in the best possible way. Bhishma is so powerful. Drona is so powerful. Drona, had that no one can defeat him, no one can kill him unless he wants to be killed. That was the boon that Drona had. Bhishma had the boon of Ichha Mrityu. That means he can die only when he wants to die. So you see, these people were invincible. And Arjuna, though he's a trained warrior, there was no chance that he could defeat this, right? So his execution of his military prowess would be faulty in comparison to all these personalities, right? So Krishna says, even if you're not able to execute your duty perfectly, it's still better to do that than to become a sannyasi and act perfectly like a sannyasi. So why would that be? This makes no logical sense. What do you think what's going on? Like if you go and tell this to your friends or your teachers, or well, they would say, well, you should do something that you excel in. So if I'm able to do something in the best possible way, well, that's what I should pursue, right? One should take up any activities in which they are the best, right? That's how people choose their profession or career. But here it seems Krishna is telling the exact opposite. He says, no, don't go for something that you are excel, you're good at it, but if it's against your nature. Now if you are really good at something and if it's according to your nature, yes, you can do it. But if it's not according to your nature, it's not in your upbringing or training or family tradition, you should not take that up. Rather, even if you're not able to execute it properly, or even if there are faults in those activities, just keep on doing that than to do somebody else's duty perfectly. Why do you think Krishna is saying that? I don't expect you to answer this. I mean, it's a tough one, but in case you had some thoughts, or if anyone wants to share, I wanted to open that up. And this appears twice in Bhagavad Gita, this particular verse, in 3rd chapter, and I believe further in the 18th. The 18th chapter, the same verse appears again, almost same. No one wants to make an attempt.
Wait, could he be trying to do this because like if you really excel at it, but deep inside you really don't want to do it, then wouldn't it be better for you just to not do it? Because like if it's like, because like I mean he might be like Arjuna in this case might be really excelled in war and everything, but in like deep inside he still doesn't feel like fighting his relatives, or like he feels like he doesn't really like doing it. So I mean, deep inside, if he doesn't really like doing it, even if it doesn't really matter how good he is at doing it, shouldn't he just not do it at all?
That's what Arjuna's argument is. I don't want to do it because I don't like to do it. But Krishna said, it doesn't matter you like it or not. That is not the criteria. It doesn't even matter whether you're good at doing it or not. You should do what you're trained for, or what that is what your prescription is. And not something that you are not trained for, or whatever. It's to be not against your upbringing. That is what Krishna is saying. So the question is, this makes no sense, right? Well, I might be better at doing something else, then why should I do what my fathers did or my forefathers did? So your hint is over here.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess if it is his job, he must carry out his duty and do what he was like meant to, because he's been preparing this whole time just for this moment. So I guess he should just carry it out instead of taking a step back.
Okay, but that is in case of Arjuna, but he's generically saying this applies to everyone, right? So not just him, but other Kshatriyas, other Brahmanas. He says, Brahmana, if you are born in a Brahmana family, then you should just do your Brahmana duties and not do something else. Well, somebody might say, well, this is casteism, right? The idea that you're born in a particular caste and you should just...
And you can't do anything else, and you have to do that, yeah.
But casteism is rejected today, in the present day society. Say this is all nonsense.
Like, yeah, you can do what you want to because you have that freedom.
But Krishna is saying, don't do something that's against your family tradition. So how do you justify that, right?
Yeah, I guess maybe it depends on like the situation, and maybe in this particular situation, maybe Arjuna has to follow this duty.
But it's not simply to Arjuna. You see, this is generically saying Krishna to everyone. That whatever...
I'm not sure I agree with that, but I would say it depends on the situation. But that's personally, I'm not sure.
You're saying that Krishna's instruction is only for Arjuna, not for others?
Yeah, and I mean not just for Arjuna, like it could be for others too, but I'm saying that it depends on what moment it is. So like if it's in a specific moment, then they like, you know, then they have to sometimes they have to carry out what they're meant for, even though they don't feel like it, because that's their duty. But like in other times, like maybe you should, like, if you really really don't like what you're doing, maybe then you have the flexibility to quit that and try to do something else, even though that's your duty. So I personally think that it's for everyone, but it depends on the time, the moment, and what scale it is in.
Right, these are all good points. But Krishna is saying it's recommended that you don't do it. Even if you don't like it, you still keep on doing it. So how do you understand that, right? So here's your hint. This is the premise of the argument based on which varnashram is based, because the whole idea, see, in the modern society or the present day society, the idea is, well, you live and die only once, and so that means we want to enjoy the life to the fullest. And in order to enjoy the life to the fullest, we want to have a lot of other things, many consumer products or whatever that makes us happy. And so we want to make this, and so whoever is able to do the job the best possible way, right, should do the job, right? Doesn't matter if it's according to their nature or not, and really doesn't matter what happens to them in the due course of process. And so everyone goes to the same education. You go to the public school, it doesn't matter what your upbringing, what your family tradition, everyone goes to the school, you learn the same thing. And then when you grow up, you decide whatever you want to be, right? Everyone goes to the same sort of training. And what happens if you look at, see, most people, they don't do what they were trained for, right? People might
True.
get degree in engineering
Yeah.
and they do business, right? So, and despite of having education, they might, sometimes people are unemployed. So it creates a lot of confusion. So in the Vedic system, the idea is, well, no matter how much success you get, everything is temporary. Purpose of life is not to get some material perfection, but to get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. For that, one need to cultivate mode of goodness. And we want to keep something simple instead of trying to figure out, somebody is born in a family of Vaishya, businessman, but he wants to be a Kshatriya. Then, by nature, he's getting the impressions in his family to be a Vaishya. Now he has to unlearn that and learns about how to become a Kshatriya. So it just creates more complications, right? And how would you know who wants to do what? To organize a society, it becomes very complicated when you give so much choices. Rather, the idea is people should instead learn how to be in the mode of goodness, that you're satisfied with whatever situation you are in, because all situations are temporary, right? You don't try to make attempt to change the situation. Rather, the attempt that one should make is, one should give up the attachment towards the results, the desire to enjoy the results, and instead one should learn how to offer the results of one's work into sacrifice. It doesn't matter if it's Brahmana work, Kshatriya work, Vaishya, that is immaterial. But whatever results one get, we should offer it as a sacrifice. So that, why? Because then you don't get karma. If you don't get karma, you get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. So it's a different objective. The objective of the society is different, and so the society is organized differently. So people are encouraged to cultivate the mode of goodness, and goodness means you're satisfied with whatever situation. If I am trained as a Brahmana, or I'm trained, if I'm brought up as a Vaishya, why should I cultivate the desire to becoming a Kshatriya? That means that is mode of passion. Hey, he said, why I'm a Vaishya? I also want to be a Brahmana, right? I'm not satisfied with my situation, and I want to change about it. So when we organize a society in a way which increases the mode of passion, then it creates a lot of problems and confusion. The whole idea of the Vedic society is how to bring people to the mode of goodness. The people are satisfied with whatever situation they are in, right? So that's why, in that sense, the choice, and it makes natural sense that, okay, I'm born in a particular family because of my past inclinations and past karma. and I'm already getting that impressions and training. So I have to unlearn that and learn something else, right? That's why if you see people in the past, by the time they are 14 or 15 in their teenage, they already mastered their family tradition. You know, a Kshatriya like Abhimanyu, he was hardly 15 or 16 and he was an expert warrior, right? Because right from young age, right, you know, when you're spending most of the time with your family members, you're getting the training. Right. Similarly, a Brahmana or a potter or a cloth merchant, by the time somebody's in teenage, without going through any, you know, schooling or spending, you know, hundreds and thousands of dollars, taking a loan to get a college degree, none of that is there. People live and die in debt, right? You get so much loans people take to get a degree, they're still not unemployed. Just creates a lot of confusion. But because when one is brought up in the same family tradition, they learn very quickly, right? And you know they are already expert in their field in a due course of time. So the idea is, well, you just be satisfied with where you are. Rather, people should, instead of encouraging to people to pursue what they think would be good for them, right? And then ultimately they might realize, well, this is not good for me, because they thought I thought you know, an engineering degree or a computer science degree would make me happy. But then after going through degree, when I start working, like, hey, this is not the work I really wanted to do. Like studying computer science is cool, but working 16, 18 hours, that's really not meant for me, right? As opposed to somebody learns on job, right? Like right from young age is doing what the father is doing or the uncle's doing, right? And one learns, and one is kind of really already trained in it. You don't have to wait for 30 years to figure out, well, this is not what I really meant for. So going through school or degree, one can gain knowledge, but one, it does not prepare one for the realities of the work that one needs to do, right? So it's a, in that way, it is much more efficient and more realistic uh, system, and it has a different purpose. The purpose is to get out of the cycle of karma. So does that make sense? Anyone would like to argue against it?
Yeah, I have an argument.
Yes.
So, what if like a new industry opens up? Like maybe, for example, like in the early 1900s, or probably like 1950s or somewhere like that. Like the first computer came, like, and then internet started coming, and then once all these new inventions started coming,
Yeah.
didn't like someone have to didn't someone have to like change their job and start working on it because it's a new innovation? Like if
Yeah.
everybody kept staying in their same job and doing their exact same craft, wouldn't there not be too many like technological advancements? Wouldn't everything like that be slow? Or
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think there's two ways to answer this. One is, no matter what technology develops, the kind of work people do will still fall under these two categories. One is those who are teaching or guiding the society, right? So let's say computer science. So there are people who teach computer science, right? Uh, then there are administrators, right? Who maybe say, oh, you know, now the computer technology is developed. Maybe there are advantages, there are disadvantages of the technology. We should have rules and regulations. You have to protect the privacy of the data. So they pass legislation. You know, they are the administrators. Well, this is how systems should operate. These are the rules and regulations. This is the administrative class. Then there are people who are business minded. Will say, you know, well, how to make business out of it. You know, how shall we make this product in the cheapest way? What kind of features we should add? And you know, how should we sell it, right? And there are people who are doing the actual coding, who are building it, the programmers. That's a labor class, you see. So no matter what technology or what industry develops, you know, the four classes of people will always manifest. So that won't change. That's one outlook and how you can apply. The other thing is, if you see, it's not that the Vedic traditions never try to exploit the resources of the nature to start different uh, uh, machines which are powered by energy, like, you know, external energy, like fossil fuels or oil or gas or coal, because that in long term is not sustainable. in the sense that if you see before, if you look at the history before 200 years ago, before the coal, the first energy resource that came about was coal. Then came, petrol, right? The gas, the oil, right? And after that, there was natural gas.
Didn't people like since like ever since people found out about fire, then they like burn wood? So wouldn't it release carbon emissions anyways?
Yeah, but wood does not produce so much, right? I mean, you're not going to,
Like
wood you will use for cooking, right? So
no
if you see,
wood.
the global warming problem was not there. I mean, how much wood you will burn? But if you want to
Yeah, but
travel,
then
sorry, like
yeah, but then
traveling,
like
people will, most of the pollution happens through vehicles, right? And from industries trying to make things, right? All the things that you look on Amazon, everything
yeah.
is made in factories. That's where all the pollution happens. Earlier, people wanted to travel, they did not have oil powered vehicles. They would just, you go in a bullock cart, right? Or sail powered ships. So there is no global warming from burning wood, right? So now these energy resources, see, any technology that you come up with, any new invention, we need some energy to power it, right? And energy means you need coal, which is still highly used, you need oil, right? Or natural gas. Well, now they have solar energy, wind power, but there is not, it's very less percentage. And all this technology, whether you take solar power or wind power or water power, hydroelectricity, they are all dependent on fossil fuels. If you take oil out, you cannot generate, like the wind turbines which are made, they are made by factories which run on coal or fossil fuel. How are they transported to the place where it needs to generate? You still need huge trucks that they carry thing that needs oil, right? The plastics, the electronics, the batteries which are used, these are all petrochemical products. So if you take oil out, then all these renewable sources of energy, they will stop functioning. So it's just an aberration. If you look at the history before 200 years ago, people have been living the same way they have been living for millions of years, right? They did not have so many different industries. All these industries developed because the fossil fuel and everything came up. And fossil fuel, we know, it's not going to last forever, and there is a limited supply. Or we will burn so much fossil fuel that this world won't be habitable, right? It's like will be destroyed. Um, Either that will happen or will run out of fossil fuel, right? So it is a temporary aberration. I mean, if you look at the history of millions of years, 200, 300 years is nothing, right? So this society will mostly go on as they will go on. And there are many civilizations that have come and gone. Like Egyptian civilization was there, it collapsed. The Romans came and went, and the industrial civilization will also come and go, right? But these are general principles in which humanity has lived for a long period of time. And so this is a sustainable way, like nowadays they have college degrees in sustainability, how to live in a way that the civilization can sustain, right? So now people are worried that it won't sustain, it will break down, it will collapse. So this system, which has always existed, and you can say maybe it has faults, but everything in this world has faults. But the purpose is higher purpose. The purpose is not to make our situation better, but to get out of the karmic reaction. Right? Even if we make this life perfect, but if we get another birth, then again, you kind of restarting the whole process. Okay, so hopefully this answers the question. But if there are any questions or comments, we can take that. We still have one more slide, but we will maybe briefly summarize this. But let's see if anyone had any final comments on this particular topic.
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure.
You said like people like we need to strive to be in the mode of goodness, but I think like in chapter 2, Krishna told Arjuna that you need to go beyond that, like beyond the modes of material nature. So like
yeah, that's true. Yeah, beyond the mode of material nature, that's the ultimate objective. And when we say go beyond the modes of material nature, people first of all need to come to the platform of goodness. It's a gradual progression, right? And then one can transcend goodness. It's very difficult to overcome all the modes of nature when suppose one is in ignorance, right? One cannot even function at level. Some don't even have a proper schedule or regulation. When people are really passionate, they cannot understand the higher purpose of life. Because transcending the modes of nature means one needs to have a higher purpose of life beyond the immediate needs of the body or other material things. And to understand the higher purpose of life, people have to come to the platform of goodness. So yes, thanks for bringing that up. One has to transcend the modes of nature. In order to transcend, one has to first come to the platform of goodness.
So
And by
my second,
yes.
sorry. Yeah. That like, so how do we like? Because we sometimes we're in ignorance, sometimes we're in passion, and sometimes we're in goodness. So how do we like stay on the mode of goodness?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Excellent question. Yeah, the modes are constantly changing. And it's very difficult to be situated in one particular mode. But there is, it is still possible to cultivate some basic mode, right? I mean, somebody is more or less in mode of goodness, might sometimes be passionate, but that person won't be as passionate as someone who is deeply in the mode of passion. So there are always fluctuations, but that fluctuation for someone who is already in the mode of goodness, plus slight fluctuation into passion and ignorance, one is never in. No one can say I'm purely in one particular mode, right? One mode is predominant and the other modes are there, but they are not so dominant, right? So there's always some combination of the modes, and there is the proportion is also fluctuating, is not always stable. But there are two ways: by cultivating knowledge of what kind of activities are in the mode of goodness, and which are discussed in detail in chapter 18. Eating can be in three modes of nature, sleeping can be in three modes of nature, giving charity can be in three modes of nature, austerities can be in three modes of nature. So by first of all theoretically understanding it and trying to make effort to perform everything in the mode of goodness, associating with others who are also performing those activities in the mode of goodness, one can remain, right, more or less in that level. And that can help one make advancement. But yeah, you can be assured that there would be some fluctuation that would always be there, right? Like no one can always be fixed completely in that particular level, but by large one should try to be situated in sattva guna.
But if we can never like fully be in the mode of goodness, then how are we supposed to go like above that?
That's another good question. Excellent question. So when we say transcend the modes of nature, means that one is not even attached to the mode of goodness, and one is fully in the control of the modes, in the sense that they know where to engage goodness, where to engage passion, and when to engage ignorance. So I'll give you an example. A person who has transcended all the three modes still acts in this world, but he knows when I should be in the mode. He's not in the control of the modes, but that person is able to act in a particular mode by his own choice. So that person will say that, I won't decide what needs to be done by my own whims. I will approach a higher authority like a self-realized person, a guru, or I will consult scriptures of what is the right thing to do, right? And even if that is not pleasing to me, it might not be pleasing, I won't consider my personal preference. So I will decide what needs to be done based on higher authority, and I will be satisfied. That is mode of goodness, right? Because I will satisfied. I'm happy with whatever instruction my spiritual authority or the scriptures will give me. That means I'm in the mode of goodness, right? What was the definition of goodness? That I'm satisfied with it. I don't want to change it. So whatever instruction I get, I won't do a negotiation. No. I know you're telling me to do this, Guru Maharaj, but can we have some negotiation? You won't use the word, but like, can I rather do slightly different way, right? So he doesn't do that. He's like, okay, this is the order, I do it. But now to execute the order, he says one engages the mode of passion. Because for Arjuna, suppose he has to fight, he cannot fight without passion. But he's taking the order from Krishna that I have to fight, even if I don't like to fight. So that if he does that, the taking of the order is in the mode of goodness. Executing requires passion, right? I have to defeat that army. I want to change the situation, right? But he's not under the influence of passion. Now he's invoking the mode of passion where it's needed. And when he wins the kingdom, he says, I don't want the results. I don't want to enjoy it. I want to give it up. That is ignorance. Because you cannot reject anything unless one is in the mode of ignorance. Like suppose I give you like a diamond, the biggest diamond that you've ever seen, right? And if you say you reject it, I don't want it, that is in the ignorance. That means you are ignoring the fact that this is valuable. You're saying this is as it's almost worthless. That means you are ignorant about the value of that diamond, but you are willingly ignorant. In case of person who is Arjuna, if he rejects the kingdom that he wins, so he's willingly expressing his ignorance. That means he knows that, well, in larger scale of things, this is not important. So he has a higher realization. But at one level, he's willingly ignoring that, well, kingdom is something valuable. So now he's invoking the mode of ignorance. So you see, now all the modes are in balance. He took the order in the mode of goodness. He executed in the mode of passion. And when it came to enjoying the results, he exhibited ignorance. So now he is in control of the modes, rather modes controlling him, and that's what it means to transcend the modes. Does it make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, good questions, excellent questions. I know we are already about time, so I'm going to give you this as a homework, the last slide that we did not cover, and we'll revise it next time. But this basically talks about different gradations of lust, or the desire to have something for one's enjoyment. And there is an example given there. What are the three levels? As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, so that is also a covering of ignorance. Fire is covered by smoke is also a covering, and the embryo is covered in the womb, so you cannot see the embryos. There are three, each of these, they correspond to three different levels of lust. So I recommend that you read third chapter verses 36 to 43. You can go over the slide also, which summarizes those verses, and then bring your findings in the next class, which will be in the new year. We are not meeting on 26th. We are not meeting on the 2nd. And we'll be meeting on the 9th. And so definitely study those verses. Also revise the entire third chapter. We will have a quiz, right? And if possible, revise all the three chapters. Definitely revise the third chapter. We have not had a quiz, so we'll have a Kahoot quiz when we meet again in the new year. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can always reach out. I wish you all very happy holidays. Hope you are able to take time out to have some fun with your friends and family members. Stay safe and enjoy your break. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
Hare Krishna.